Last time, we talked about the string data type, and just as a reminder, a string is simply a sequence of Unicode characters. This time we're going to look at a couple of more interesting processing things that we can do with strings. As a reminder, here are the module learning objectives for Module 6, and we're really working on the second one in this case, where we're taking a look at string processing. So you might ask yourself, what might we want to actually do with strings? We've already seen how we can read them in using console.readline. We've already seen that we can convert them to a value type. We did that last time. We might need to look for a particular character in the string. So for example, it is very common for people to export CSV files, comma-separated value files from Excel or something like that. You could also separate them by tabs. You can use any separator character you want when you export. So it might be the case, though, that we want to write a program that reads in such a file and finds the location of those separators so that we can do interesting stuff. So we might have to find a particular character. And in fact, once we've found that particular character, we might want to extract part of that string into a new string to sort of gather the information from each line in that CSV file. And we might do something else. And that's so vague, right? What something else? Whatever you discover you need to do with strings. And the way we move forward as programmers in programming in general and game development in particular is we can't learn everything as beginners. We learn what we need, and then as we need to learn new stuff, we learn it. And so you may discover lots of things you want to do with strings, and when the time comes, you'll look at the documentation and you'll try to figure it out. Okay, so let's actually start with an in-lecture quiz where I ask you how we can do that, find a particular character in the string, and then we'll actually go do some code to do it. I will open up the project that I already created, and we'll say read in CSV string. Prompts, remember, are console.write with no politeness whatsoever. Enter name. Well, okay, we can't use WRT. It has to be right. Enter name and percent. So imagine this is for a class or something like that. And it makes, if we're expecting a particular format from the user, even though we know users are going to mess with us no matter what, we should tell them the format. So let's say name, comma, percent, like that. So there's our prompt, and we'll read in the CSV string using console readline. Now, once we have a comma-separated string, we can extract values from that string, and the first thing we're going to do is find out where the comma is. So find comma location. And we can do that. Let me just declare a variable here. We can do that by using, hopefully you got this right on the in-lecture quiz, we can use that, do that using the index of method. So all we have to do is say CSV string dot index of, and we'll look for the comma without any extra parentheses, hopefully. Okay, and by the way, I did this as a string, but we can of course look for a single character as well by using single quotes around the literal rather than double quotes around the literal. So let's actually use the debugger to explore a little bit more how index of works by setting a breakpoint, and I'll run it. And first I'll enter something like my last name or name, Bob, comma, and my percent, I'm stupid, so we'll say 0. Think for a moment about what you think index of will return. And then we can look at comma location, and it's 3. So remember we start at 0. Character 0 is B, character 1 is O, character 2 is B, and the comma is at location 3. The other thing we can do, I'll press F5 and that will just finish the program for me. I'm going to, and notice by the way, that because I'm using the debugger in this particular case, I'm actually using F5 in this console application instead of Control F5. That's why I said when I said go all the way to the end, it actually just flashed that screen. Okay, I'm going to do it one more time, and I'm going to enter something without any comma at all. And when we get to the breakpoint, the comma location is -1. So if index of finds what we're looking for, it returns the location of the first occurrence of what we're looking for. So if we'd had multiple commas in our string, it wouldn't matter. It still would give us the location of the first one. The other thing that happens is if what we're looking for does not appear in the string, then it just tells us, well, it returns -1. Okay, so now we know where I'm going to get rid of the breakpoint. And I'll F5 to finish off. So now we've found the location. Let's extract name and %. We'll also print name and %. And then, of course, that blank line that we know and love. Okay, before we extract what we need to extract, go to the in-lecture quiz to tell me if you have a good guess about that. All right, so we actually extract using substring, and the substring takes a piece of the string we're extracting from and puts it into a new string. Remember, strings are immutable, so we can't modify the string we have, but we can create new strings from it. So I'll say string name is equal to, and now we need to use substring on our CSV string to extract a piece of the string. Now we've talked about overloads. Substring has 2 overloads. One, we give it the start index, and it goes all the way to the end. It starts at whatever we've provided as that start index. Remember, the thing between those square brackets when we accessed a single character in the sequence of characters that are the string is called an index. So we can give it the index, and it'll go all the way to the end of the string, but that's definitely not what we want here. What we want here is we want to start at the beginning of the string and go up to the comma. So we're going to use the other overload. We're going to use the overload where we provide a start index and a length. So the start index is 0 because we want to start extracting the name from the beginning of the string. And the question is how long? How many characters do we need to grab? And it turns out that having 0-based strings and having index of work the way it does is awesome because the length is actually comma location. We want to extract 3 characters, the B, the O, and the B, from the example that I used. So I'm going to print this one to show that we've extracted that properly before we move on. So the name is that. We will Control F5 now because I'm not debugging anymore. I'll still do Bob. I'll do 10 now because Bob's getting smarter over time. And the name is Bob. So it extracted it properly using substring. The next thing we want to do is let's extract that %. Now you might be tempted to say string % because I know I'm doing string processing, but that would be wrong. It would be wrong morally. You're a bad person. Don't do that. So in fact, % is a float. So let's store % as a float. We'll do CSV string, substring. And this time we actually want that first overload, where we start at a particular place and go to the end of the string. And that particular place is not comma location. It's comma location +1. And you might find that you need to actually use those archaic things, pencil and paper, and write down a string and look at it and number all of the characters starting at 0 and see why it needs to be comma location +1. You should check that out. However, I am getting a compilation error here and I can't implicitly convert string to float. you should say, wow, I remember seeing that last time, because if I want to convert a string to a numeric data type, then I need to parse it. And this time it's not an int, it's a float, but that's okay. We'll just do float parse instead of int parse. And we'll print it out again. Well, not again, we'll print this out for the very first time. But we will print out the percent as well, just to demonstrate that we have in fact extracted it properly. Like so. And so Control F5, I'll enter Bob, comma, and this time I'll do 20.0 because Bob realizes a percent should be a float as well. And it prints out Bob and 20, and we're in good shape. Okay, so here's the thing. We have, and that's really it. That's the exploration of the string processing that we're going to do for today. Index of, there's a corresponding method called last index of, and substring are three methods that you are likely to use to process strings regularly to do the stuff you need. When you discover there's something else you need to do to strings, you go read the string documentation. Each method tells what it does, and you find the one that will work for you. So that's it for our string module, module 6. So next time, in the next lecture, we will move on to module 7, where we'll start talking about how we can make decisions in our programs.